Welcome and thank you for joining the College of Education's Explore More on the Student Teaching Experience. My name is Julianne Brett and I'm the Director of Clinical Practice here in the College of Education. First, let me just start off by thanking you again for joining today's presentation. As each of you know, you have several hours of practicum that's embedded throughout your program of study. Those hours certainly provide you with authentic experiences in which you will be able to apply what you've learned in the classroom, and you'll be able to expand your knowledge and develop your teaching skills. Then at the end of your program, you will have that full semester long student teaching experience where you're going to be fully immersed in the field, working alongside a cooperating teacher, and that's when you're going to engage in all the regular teaching duties, and that's really in order to best prepare you for your certification and your own future classroom. So here on this first page, you'll see the agenda and the topics we'll cover today. We'll start off by introducing the key support roles we have in place here at the College of Education. We'll also dive into student teaching eligibility requirements, as well as our expectations of you as a teacher candidate or a student teacher during your student teaching experience. Of course, each of you will also be enrolled in a student teaching course, so we'll discuss the components of that course here. And then finally, we'll discuss the resources available to you and whom you can reach out to if you have any additional questions. So again, my name is Julianne Brett and I'm the Director of Clinical Practice. Our office here helps to oversee all items related to practicum, field experience, of course, student teaching, any of our internships. So our Office of Clinical Practice really does oversee anything that's related to the in the field work. Of course, we also work closely with a variety of different departments here in the College of Education and across the university. That does include our faculty members as well as our field experience and placement teams. So here on the screen, you will see a screenshot of the placement counselors and field experience counselors. We also have a direct link that will take you to where this document is housed on the Student Success Center. So you each will be assigned to a field experience counselor, and that individual is well versed in a particular region of the United States. So he or she can help assist you in providing information on specific College of Education programmatic requirements, things such as your fingerprint clearance requirement, your certification exams, your pathway to certification, and of course, any questions related to practicum, field experience, or student teaching. Those of you that are enrolled in an initial licensure program that leads to teacher certification are also provided with a teacher placement counselor. And again, they're divided up by region of the United States, and they will help to answer any questions related to student teaching and help you also with your student teaching placement. So you will fill out an application that goes into our teacher placement counselor, and he or she will work to secure you a student teaching placement. So again, you can find out who your counselors are by visiting this link to the Student Success Center, or you can also check within your student portal. Along with those counselors, there are several people that you'll be working with to support you through your final capstone experience. As I mentioned previously, as you get towards the end of the program, you'll be assigned that teacher placement counselor. Again, this is the person that will intake your student teaching application and help to secure the student teaching placement. They'll also be the individual who will assist with any questions related to that student teaching experience. You will also be assigned a cooperating teacher or a mentor teacher. And this is going to be the person in whose classroom you'll be spending your time on a daily basis. So they are the school site full-time teacher of record. You'll often hear us refer to this role, the cooperating teacher, as the CT. So the CT, again, is going to be your primary go-to for any questions, guidance, feedback, and support out there in the field during your student teaching. Each of you will also be assigned a GCU faculty supervisor, and this is going to be the faculty member who will be observing and evaluating your teaching performance. They do so a total of 4 times over that student teaching semester. You will also be enrolled in an online student teaching course, and of course this is facilitated by a course instructor. This course instructor is going to be like any other course instructor you've had here at GCU. They're going to participate in the discussion, they're going to grade your assignments, and they'll provide you with the overall score for your student teaching course. And then finally, we also have the clinical field experience specialist role. They work here in our Office of Clinical Practice. And these individuals will be the ones to work directly with your cooperating teacher and your GCU faculty supervisors. So they help to assist the professionals out there in the field. They'll be receiving communications from our clinical field experience specialist. They do receive training, and they are there to help answer any questions that may come up during the student teaching experience. So several people that are on board to help you out and see you through student teaching. Next here on this slide, you'll see the requirements needed in order to be able to progress into your student teaching experience. The first one, of course, just like for any other practicum or field experience, you are required to hold a current and valid fingerprint clearance in accordance with the state in which you are seeking certification. So those here in Arizona are required to hold a current and valid Arizona IVP fingerprint clearance card. That is valid for 6 years, so you should have that on file for the entirety of your program. Of course, if you're outside of Arizona, you can certainly reach out to your field experience counselor and they can inform you what an appropriate fingerprint clearance would be for your particular state. Number 2, also student teaching, as I mentioned, is at the end of your program. It's the last thing you complete before graduation. So in order to be eligible for it, you must have all other coursework and practicum hours completed. So again, this is going to be the very, very last thing you do here at GCU. You will also be expected to pass your state-specific basic skills and content knowledge exams. Each state is a little bit different in what they require there, so please make sure that you're working with your field experience counselor so you are aware of your particular state's requirements. Another big one here is that you're maintaining your required GPA and you're just keeping track and make sure you're going to be eligible GPA-wise as you get closer to student teaching. For our undergraduate students, you are required to hold a 2.8 grade point average in order to progress into student teaching, and our graduate master level students a 3.0. So if you're not meeting that requirement at the point of student teaching, you may need to postpone your student teaching in order to retake a course or two and pull up that GPA. So again, just make sure that you're keeping track of your grades. If anything does come up or you have any questions, you're reaching out to your counselors to seek that help. You also want to make sure that you're working with your student services counselor, as you will not be able to progress into student teaching if you do have any of those academic or financial holds. And then finally, student teaching can only be repeated one time here at GCU. Meaning if you've had one unsuccessful attempt at student teaching, you'll have just one additional attempt. Okay, student teaching placement. So the placement requirements vary dependent on your program of study. You'll see here a chart. You are required to either complete 70 or 75 days, depending on your program of study. Many of you are enrolled in one of our single placement programs, and this means that you're required to complete student teaching in just one class with one cooperating teacher for the entirety of the experience. So if you're in a program with one of these courses here in the first box to the left, you would be required to complete 70 days over a 15-week period. So that would be for our ELM 490 or 590, SEC 490 or 590, or our special education 490, or I'm sorry, 590 or 592. Some of our older single placement programs have two separate courses. So if you see on your schedule that you have two separate student teaching courses, this would still be just in one classroom with one student teacher, but our older programs, we just broke it down into 2 8-week sessions, and you would be required to complete a total of 75 days. So again, the courses that this applies to are there in that box. And then finally, if you're in one of our dual placement programs, you'll be required to be in 2 separate classrooms. The first 8 weeks will be in one setting, and then the second 8 weeks will be in another. So again, if you're enrolled in one of the classes listed here under this last box, you'll be required to complete 35 to 40 days in each setting for a total of 75 days. Now, I understand this is a little bit confusing, so if you're not sure which one of these applies to your particular program, just go ahead and reach out to your counselor, and he or she can provide you with the appropriate information for your particular program. As you get closer to your student teaching, you'll want to make sure that you are submitting the required student teaching application. And within this application, you're going to include your placement preferences, so where you would like to student teach. That will go into that teacher placement counselor in order to contact those placements and attempt to secure placement at your preferred sites. Now, keep in mind that these, again, are preferred placement options and they're not a guarantee. Your teacher placement counselor will continue to work with you if any additional placement options are needed. But you'll see here on the screen, we do have slightly different application dates dependent on if you're one of our ground traditional students versus a online non-traditional student. So we do ask for the application several months in advance. And really the reason for this is that we have adequate time in order to secure those placements. Each district and each school site, they all have their own unique processes around placement, and some may just take a little bit longer than others. So you want to make sure that you're getting that application in on time by the due dates. So our teacher placement counselors have plenty of time to work to secure those placements before the student teaching semester starts. And as you're considering where you might want to complete student teaching, we wanted to just remind you to keep a few things in mind. So first and foremost, you want to remember that student teaching is often looked at as a semester-long job interview. Really, those administrators and the HR departments of those districts or those school sites, they're going to have their eye on you for potential future employment. So you certainly want to consider student teaching in a district that you see yourself wanting to obtain future employment at. You'll also want to consider where you've done your previous practicum and field experience hours. Of course, you'll want to be sure to student teach in the state in which you're seeking certification. You may also want to think about the type of school system in which you want to eventually be working. So do you prefer the public school system, or maybe you think you'd rather teach within a private or a charter school? And then lastly, you want to just keep in mind the distance from your house or your place of residence to the school site. You know, your expectation is that you're going to be there each and every day for that full semester. And we just want to make sure that you have appropriate transportation to and from. So this leads us to our next topic, which is the expectations. So really, what's expected of you as a student teacher during this time? All College of Education candidates, whether they're in practicum or student teaching or internships, they are all held to our same academic standards and conduct expectations for observing and practicing out there in the field. So these expectations can be found in the University Policy Handbook, as well as our Practicum and Field Experience Manual and our Student Teaching Manual. So you are expected to know and be familiar with these clinical practice and academic standards, as well as our essential elements and functions of teaching. We won't go into those now, but please do make sure that you're reviewing that University Policy Handbook as well as the Student Teaching Manual, so you are aware of our policies around being out there in the field. All College of Education candidates are also held to our professional dispositions. Again, these can be found in our University Policy Handbook and our Student Teaching Manual. And these have been embedded throughout your program of study. So you should be familiar with these, or you will become familiar with these as you go further through the program. These are really those expectations for professionalism. So things like, are you committed to the field of education? Are you showing up on time? Are you communicating well with others? Are you showing respect to others? And that includes your students as well as colleagues. These professional dispositions are what you'll be evaluated on during your very first student teaching evaluation. So just make sure that you become familiar with these and you adhere to these as you go through your program. We've also adopted the Model Code of Ethics, and these are national standards put forth by the National Association of State Directors of Teacher Education and Certification. The Model Code of Ethics, it does include 5 primary principles. Now, we're not going to go through these just for the sake of time today, but please do know that you can click on the link, or you can go directly to the, Googling Model Code of Ethics for educators, and that will pop up. Their principles include things like responsibility to the profession, your professional competence, a responsibility to your students and the school's community. And then finally, the 5th principle is the responsible and ethical use of technology. So that's just what I want to point out here quickly. It's one that perhaps maybe college students don't think of as often. But keep in mind, with social media as prevalent as it is, with the current state of affairs and many things going to that virtual environment, you just want to make sure that you're adhering to ethical standards around the use of technology. So again, it's just going to be important for you to review what that looks like and what's appropriate in terms of ethics. And then you'll want to make sure that you're just making the appropriate decisions around technology. So things like keeping your profiles private and not friending any students. Okay, now we'll transition and take some time to talk about your specific responsibilities as a teacher candidate. Now you'll hear us refer to teacher candidate. Sometimes we refer to student teacher. That's really one and the same. So teacher candidate is the same thing as student teacher. But once you begin your placement, you'll be responsible for several things. First and foremost, you always want to be abiding by not only our expectations and policies, but also the rules and policies of the placement site. You'll also be expected to perform the essential functions of a full-time teacher. Remember, you're going through this experience in order to prepare yourself for the role of a teacher. And perhaps the biggest and the most important duty of any teacher is to carry out their job responsibilities, of course, without endangering the health or safety of the classroom students. So make sure that you're referring back to our essential functions and elements in the university handbook, so you're well aware of the duties and responsibilities of that role of being a teacher. You will also take full responsibility of the classroom for the minimum required weeks. And this is what we call that full takeover time frame, where you're going to essentially be responsible for taking on or mirroring the cooperating teacher's full duties. Here at GCU, we do require 50% of your student teaching experience in that full takeover mode. The way we think about it is phasing in, a full takeover, and then a phasing out. So what that means is for the first week or two, you're going to become acclimated to the classroom, get to know your cooperating teacher and the students. Then you will start to take over a subject or a lesson or a period at a time, working your way up to a full takeover of the classroom. That full takeover is going to be where you're responsible for all the items from start to finish. So that includes the planning, the implementation of lessons, assessing students, classroom management, so on and so forth. Then as you get towards the last week or two of the experience, you're going to start to phase out of the experience. So you'll start to give some of that responsibility back to the cooperating teacher. The last week would be a great time to observe other teachers at your school site to just see different styles and different methods. And then that's when you'll document that your required days in the classroom are complete. Along with communicating with your cooperating teacher, you'll want to make sure that you're also communicating with your GCU faculty supervisor on a pretty regular basis, and you're working with that supervisor to schedule times that you'll be observed. So again, remember, the GCU faculty supervisor will be the individual who observes and evaluates your teaching performance a total of 4 times over the experience. You will also participate in a collaborative conference following each of those observations or evaluations, and that collaborative conference includes you, your cooperating teacher, and your GCU faculty supervisor. So you'll all get together and you'll discuss how things are going, how the lesson that you just implemented went, are there any areas of improvement. It's just a great time to everyone sit down and talk together and get some feedback. And then lastly, it is expected that you maintain your responsibilities of that online course. That does include participating in the discussion as appropriate. You'll want to make sure that you're uploading all of your course assignments into the appropriate LoudCloud drop boxes. That includes your copies of your evaluation as well. So we just want to make sure that you're keeping up with all of that coursework in order to be able to successfully pass the student teaching class. Okay, again, here on the next screen is actually our clinical practice time log. So you'll see a screenshot of what that looks like. It is just a paper document at this time. And you're going to be documenting each day that you spend in the field in order to meet that 70 or 75-day requirement. So again, this is going to be a daily process where you mark off if you were in attendance or if you had to be absent. And then your cooperating teacher will initial verifying those days at the end of each week. Your cooperating teacher and GCU supervisor will also sign off on this. Your supervisor will collect a copy of the log for your evaluation 2 and evaluation 4. And they won't submit that last 4th evaluation until all of your required days are met. So just know that we do ask that you document every day out there in the field on this here clinical practice time log. We often get asked, well, what can I count towards my time? You can count student contact time or teacher contract time. What that means is student contact time would be any regular school day where you're working with the students. However, if there's a day maybe that the students are not present, but the teachers are contracted to be there, maybe for professional development, and you attend that, and you should attend that, you can count that towards your day. So any time spent with students, or if it's a contracted day for your teacher to be there, please make sure that you're also there, and that can count towards one of your days. What does not count would be any district holidays or inclement weather days. Those would be where the school is fully closed, no one's in attendance, the teacher is not contracted to be there, so those would not count towards your required days. As I mentioned, each of you, of course, will be enrolled into an online student teaching course. Even those of you that are ground traditional students, you are enrolled into a traditional online course. So you're not coming to campus each and every week to attend a class. For our ground students, it will be an online course. You may have some meetings that you have to attend on campus throughout the experience, but not every week. But you do want to make sure that you're aligning that course start date as closely as possible to your start date out there in the field. Okay, so you don't want to have a big gap in between when you're starting your online course and when you're starting out there in the placement. So just make sure you're working with your counselor so they can schedule you for the most appropriate online course start. And then you'll see here on the screen the overall requirements of the course. Much like your other classes, you'll have a discussion question and you'll be expected to participate. One thing a little bit different with the student teaching course is that you only have one weekly discussion question rather than the typical 2. You will also work on a teacher work sample. Here at GCU, we call that the Student Teaching Evaluation of Performance, or STEP. And this is essentially a unit plan where you're going to be demonstrating your ability to plan, deliver, and assess a standards-based instructional sequence. You're going to analyze student learning, and you'll reflect on your instruction. So again, this is an assignment that you'll work on over the course of the student teaching experience. It's a large assignment that you do components of each week as you go through student teaching. You'll each be asked to create an online professional portfolio, and this will be a digital portfolio, and your syllabus will inform you on the specific components to add to that online portfolio. You'll also have a couple of video assignments. So you'll video yourself implementing an activity from your unit plan. And you'll also video yourself providing a little bit of a reflection on your personal teaching philosophy. I should point out also, our special education programs, they require slightly additional assignments. So if you're in one of our special education programs, along with the student teaching evaluation of performance, you will also complete a mock IEP. You will also have an additional video where you're recording yourself conducting that mock IEP meeting. Of course, the course also requires those 4 clinical practice evaluations, and you'll be asked to submit the documentation of your required days on that clinical practice time log. Those will be attached to your clinical practice evaluations. Just keep in mind that during student teaching, we don't want you working on your online coursework while you're at the school site. You know, we want you to complete your actual online coursework outside of the regular school day, because that time should really be focused on students and you're preparing for their instruction. And then just make sure, as I mentioned, that you're keeping up to date on all coursework, you're submitting all of your assignments. If you have any questions or concerns, you're working directly with your course instructor. We really, really hate to see when a student's doing so well out there in the field, but for whatever reason, they are not keeping up on their online coursework and they fail the course. Because if you fail the course, you do have to take the entire experience over. Okay, here you'll see a screenshot of our Student Success Center. For those of you that may not be familiar with the Student Success Center, this is really a part of our university website where each college can house their various resources. So here within the College of Education, we do update our site on a regular basis. So we encourage you to bookmark it, save it as a favorite, and come back to it often. So you'll see here on the left-hand side, there's several different categories, things including lesson plan templates, practicum, information on our professional dispositions. You jump down here towards the end, you'll see student teaching or clinical practice information. Now, we're not going to go directly here now for sake of time, but do know we have several resources that will be helpful to you as you approach the experience. You'll see our student teaching manual, some additional helpful forms and copies of the evaluation. So I just encourage you to take some time to make sure that you're going to the Student Success Center, you're looking through the available resources, and then you're coming back to it on a regular basis as we do update information. As you get closer to the student teaching semester, you're also going to be invited to join our professional learning network. And of course, we have an abbreviation for this, PLN. This is an additional hub or website that certain groups of students are invited to access additional resources. There's a discussion area. You can partake in discussion. You can view educational news. This is a great space to come to if you're looking to connect with others who are going through the experience at the same time as you. So again, you may not have access to this just yet, but about 6 months prior to your student teaching start, you will be invited to join our professional learning network. Another quick highlight here, we just wanted to let you know that we do have several different social media sites, and we encourage you to engage and connect with us on each of these. So we have our Teaching in Purple, which is a monthly blog. You'll also see that we have Twitter and Instagram. So again, we encourage you to subscribe. It's just a great way to stay connected with us here in the College of Education. And be provided with updates. And we do also have our Lopes Teach Up page as well. So we encourage you to come to these links and click on them often. For those of you located here in Arizona, or maybe even those that want to move to Arizona eventually, we do hold a Lopes Leap to Teach and Lead Career and Networking Expo each semester. And during this event, we invite districts and school sites from across Arizona to campus in order to connect with you, our students. And it's really for everyone within the College of Education, not just those at the end of their program, but also those that are just beginning the program. Again, it's a great way to see what types of schools are out there and connect with the districts, from anything regarding practicum up to student teaching, and of course, even potential future employment. It's also just a great opportunity for you to practice speaking with professionals in the field. So certainly we encourage you to come out to that. Unfortunately, for the fall semester, with everything that's going on and the restrictions, we will not be holding this here on campus. However, we will be holding it virtually. So that will take place virtually on December 2nd from 2 to 4 p.m. And just be on the lookout for more information in your email as we get a little bit closer to the day of that event. Finally, I wanted to be sure to leave you with some of my own top tips around student teaching. So first, you'll see here, clean up your social media. School administrators, teachers, students, and their families will look you up. Remember, we as teachers are held to higher standards, and you really don't want to find yourself in an awkward or uncomfortable situation where you're having to explain away something someone found online. Also, simply speaking, don't friend students. You need to keep those boundaries between you and the classroom of students separate. So again, I know technology is a big thing out there, and social media is prevalent today. So you just want to make sure you're only putting appropriate information out there. Number two, remember, many of these schools and districts will have their eye on you for potential future employment. I know here in Arizona, we have a large teacher shortage, and these schools are really hungry for our candidates. So just make sure that you're utilizing the time you're spending in the field wisely, you're making great first impressions, and you're always remaining professional, polite, and positive. This next one is a big one. Remember that the relationships that you're building with your cooperating teacher and your supervisor and the administrators out there, they're going to be critical. So make sure you're asking questions, you're requesting their feedback. They are there to support you and see you through this experience. They want you to be successful. So it's just really, really important that you're able to use the feedback and the guidance that they're providing you to improve your performance and your teaching techniques. So try your hardest not to take any feedback personally or get defensive. Remember, they're providing the feedback to you to help you. So just take it and reflect on how this information can help you become a better teacher. And this leads me into number 4, which is practice self-reflection and embody a spirit of continuous improvement. This is so important as an educator. Really, no matter how long you've been at it, the more you reflect on your practice, what things can you change, what things should you change, the better your practice is going to be. So we here in the College of Education live by this spirit of continuous improvement. No matter, like I mentioned, how long we've been in the teaching field, we are always looking at what we're currently doing and how that can be improved upon. Of course, be sure that you're communicating and you're connecting with your counselors, your course instructors, your supervisors, again, that cooperating teacher. It's so important to communicate and utilize your resources. You have so many people here at GCU ready to help you out, so always feel free to make sure you're reaching out if you do have any questions or concerns. Also, like I mentioned, make sure you're bookmarking that Student Success Center and you're visiting it often. Just get into the habit of coming back and seeing what's available to you. Again, we want to support you, and we try our best to provide the most meaningful resources for you as you progress through the program, not only for student teaching, but through the entirety of your program. So again, that Student Success Center is going to be a great resource for you, no matter where you're at in your program. And of course, I don't have it up here on the screen, but remember to have fun. This is an experience that is a lot of work, but it will be a lot of fun as well. So with that, we will wrap it up. Again, I thank you for taking the time out of your day to attend our Looking Ahead and Overview of Student Teaching Explore More session. I hope it was informative and helpful for you. If you do have any questions, always feel free to reach out to your field experience counselor, or if you've been assigned to a teacher placement counselor, do so as well. You can certainly also contact us here within the College of Education by emailing coe.clinicalpractice@gcu.edu. So thank you again so very much, and good luck as you enter into your student teaching experience.